Have you ever looked at a kitten and felt something happen in your brain instantly? Not a thought, a reaction, a soft feeling, a pause, a strange urge to protect something that isn't even yours. Now here's the strange part. Scientists don't think that reaction is random. They think it may be built into you, and kittens may be one of the strongest triggers for it. Because when researchers study what humans find cute, kittens consistently rank near the top. Not because we simply like animals, but because certain features they have seem to activate ancient systems inside the human brain. Systems you don't consciously control, and once those systems switch on, they're surprisingly difficult to ignore. So what exactly is happening when you see a kitten? Let's find out. Take a close look at a kitten's face. Big eyes, a round head, a tiny nose, soft proportions. Most people see those features and think one thing: cute. But science has another explanation. Back in 1943, Austrian ethologist Konrad Lorenz identified something he called the Baby Schema, a set of physical traits that automatically trigger nurturing and protective feelings in humans. Large eyes, round heads, small noses, soft features. In nature, those characteristics usually signal something important: a young and vulnerable life. And vulnerable life needs protection. That's not a cultural idea. It's survival biology. Human babies have these features, and interestingly, so do kittens, which means your brain doesn't always react to a kitten as just another animal. Part of your brain sees signals that have been associated with caregiving for thousands of generations. The response begins before you consciously think about it. And that's where things start to get interesting. Now let's talk about dopamine. Most people call dopamine the pleasure chemical, but that's not entirely accurate. Dopamine is more closely linked to motivation, attention, and learning. It helps your brain decide what matters. When your brain encounters something rewarding, dopamine helps reinforce the experience. It encourages you to pay attention, to remember it, and often to seek it out again. This is one reason cute animals can be so captivating. In 2012, researcher Hiroshi Nitono and his team discovered something surprising. People who viewed images of baby animals didn't just feel good afterward. They actually became more focused, more careful, and more attentive. Researchers believe this may happen because the brain shifts into a protective state when it encounters something young and vulnerable. And kittens are remarkably effective at triggering that shift. Think about how often people stop scrolling when they see a kitten video, or how quickly they become invested in a kitten rescue story, or how difficult it can be to walk past a tiny stray kitten without feeling something. That's not weakness. It's your brain responding exactly the way evolution prepared it to respond. And the more scientists study this reaction, the more fascinating the story becomes. Because kittens didn't just accidentally become good at getting our attention. Over thousands of years, they became better at it. To understand that, we need to go back roughly 10,000 years. Long before cats became household companions. Long before litter boxes, cat toys, or viral internet videos. Early humans began storing grain, and wherever grain was stored, mice appeared. Where mice appeared, wildcats followed. At first, these cats weren't pets. They were simply hunters taking advantage of an opportunity. But over time, something changed. The cats that were less afraid of humans gained an advantage. They had easier access to food, safer environments, and a better chance of survival. Their offspring inherited those traits, generation after generation. The relationship grew. Humans benefited because cats controlled rodents. Cats benefited because humans unintentionally created hunting grounds. It became one of the most successful partnerships in natural history. But there may have been something else happening too. The cats humans liked most were often treated better, protected more, fed more, tolerated more. And many of those cats shared certain features: softer faces, larger eyes, rounder heads. Features that naturally triggered positive responses in people. Over thousands of years, those traits became increasingly common. Which means that many of the characteristics we associate with kittens today may have been shaped by a long history of living alongside humans. Not through deliberate design, but through countless small interactions repeated across generations. And cats didn't stop adapting there, because they also learned how to communicate with us. If you've ever been woken up by a hungry kitten at 5 in the morning, you already know how difficult their voices can be to ignore. And there's a reason for that. Adult cats in the wild are relatively quiet. They rely heavily on scent, body language, and visual signals. But kittens are different. A kitten depends on a caregiver, and one of the fastest ways to get attention is through sound. Their vocalizations tend to be high-pitched, variable, and persistent. Many of these qualities overlap with sounds humans naturally interpret as urgent. Researchers have long known that people are especially sensitive to infant cries. Our brains are wired to notice them and respond. Kitten calls appear to tap into some of those same instincts. But cats may go even further. Researcher Karen McComb studied something called the solicitation purr, a special type of purr often used when a cat wants food or attention. At first, it sounds like an ordinary purr, comforting, familiar, relaxing. But hidden within it is a higher frequency element that humans find harder to ignore. People consistently rated these purrs as more urgent, more attention-grabbing, and more demanding, even when they couldn't explain why. Over time, many cats learn which sounds work best on their humans. Which meow gets a faster response, which purr gets extra attention, which vocalization gets breakfast served sooner. They're not plotting, they're learning, and they're remarkably good at it. Now let's zoom out. Why are cats everywhere online? Why do cat videos attract billions of views? Why do people keep watching them, even when they plan to do something else? Part of the answer is cuteness, but that's only part of the story. Another reason is that cats are surprisingly difficult to read. Dogs often communicate their emotions clearly: excitement, fear, curiosity, affection. Cats are usually more subtle. Their expressions can be ambiguous, their intentions harder to interpret, and humans are naturally drawn to mystery. In psychology, this is part of our innate drive to decode ambiguous social signals. When we don't fully understand something, we pay more attention to it. We keep watching, we keep wondering, we keep trying to figure it out. That's why people project so much personality onto cats. A serious-looking cat becomes a philosopher. A grumpy-looking cat becomes a comedian. A confused kitten becomes the star of a viral meme. We don't just watch cats, we tell stories about them. And those stories keep us engaged. Which may be one reason cats continue to dominate the internet decade after decade. But despite all the memes, all the videos, and all the jokes, there's something deeper happening beneath the surface. Because the relationship between humans and cats isn't one-sided. Researchers have found that many domestic cats form secure attachment bonds with their owners, a pattern similar to the attachment relationships seen between infants and caregivers. Cats often seek comfort from familiar humans, return to them when uncertain, and use them as a source of security in unfamiliar situations. In other words, while your brain is responding to the cat is responding to you as well. Learning your routines, recognizing your voice, understanding your behavior, and adapting over time. Not because cats are tiny humans, but because thousands of years of coexistence have shaped both species. Humans influenced cats, and cats influenced humans. Which brings us to the most interesting part of all. When you feel that immediate pull toward a kitten, that urge to smile, to pause, to care, you're experiencing something much older than modern life. The systems involved evolved long before cities, long before technology, long before the internet filled our screens with cat videos. They evolved because caring for vulnerable life helped our ancestors survive. And kittens happen to trigger those systems exceptionally well. But the story isn't really about manipulation. It's about connection. Over thousands of years, two very different species gradually adapted to each other. One shaped by survival, the other shaped by opportunity. And somewhere along the way, a relationship formed. A relationship strong enough that a tiny ball of fur can still stop us in our tracks today. And maybe that's the most fascinating part. Not that kittens affect us so deeply, but that humans and cats have spent thousands of years quietly shaping each other. And that process is still happening. Think about your own cat. Do they have a specific sound or look that completely overrides your focus? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep dive into cat psychology and want to learn more about the hidden science behind cat behavior, make sure to subscribe, because there's a lot more going on behind those curious eyes than most people realize. And we're only getting started.